You are listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast with Angela Henderson, episode 94. Hey there, you're listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast. My name is Angela Henderson, and on this show, we talk about improving your business, life, or both by having amazing and rich conversations with brilliant guests who will inspire you and who will give you tips and tricks to help you grow both in life and in business. Well, hey there, and welcome back to another awesome episode of the Business and Life Conversations podcast. I am your host, Ange, from Angela Henderson Consulting, where I am a business consultant and coach who has helped hundreds of awesome women business owners get all the pieces in place to have consistent 5-figure months and then on to 6-figure years without burning out in the process. Let's just say, going into motherhood with my first child, Finley, I never thought I would be as lonely as I was. I never thought in a million years that I would lose myself, that I would also lose friends, that my relationship with my partner would take a back seat, and that for so long, life was simply about survival. Add throwing in not one business, but 2 businesses, and also working full-time as a mental health clinician, and let's just say my life was pretty much batshit crazy. So as I was scrolling on Instagram one day, I came across the words, moms who whine. And I was like, oh, hell, did I just read that right? Moms who whine. I was stopped in my tracks. I mean, when you have the words mom and whine in the same sentence, I had to know more. Enter Lauren Oliver. Lauren, you see, has created Moms of Wine as an avenue for moms to fill their cup and invest in their own self-care. And man, oh man, has she absolutely nailed it. I mean, it's not only a business, but more importantly, she's created a community for moms, and she's done this by creating a bigger impact by all proceeds of 5% of that, I should say, to be exact, are donated to Panda. And Panda, for those that don't know, is the Perinatal Anxiety and Depression of Australia, which supports women and men and families all across Australia affected by anxiety and depression during pregnancy and the first year of parenthood. 5% of all proceeds, she does this with Panda, while still running a successful business and supporting moms. I mean, seriously, this lady's an absolute legend. Lauren is doing amazing things both in business and with Panda, and this is an episode that has pulled on my heartstrings. An episode where, yes, there are actually tears, because what she's doing with other mothers and what she's doing in the business world is truly, truly inspirational. Today, we're going to talk about how she saw a gap in the market and created her business and the suite of services that she has now today, what her biggest challenge has been with scaling a business, not only here in Australia, but overseas. We're also going to dive deep about what advice she would give to someone starting out and wanting to create not only a community, but making an impact in creating that business. And I also want to dive deep a little bit more about the impact she's making, because some of the stories she tells today will bring tears to your eyes. But before we hop straight into this awesome episode, I'd like to remind you that if you enjoy this episode, I would love for you to share your key takeaway, a fun fact, or anything you would love to share about the podcast over on your Instagram stories, and then tagging me at Angela Henderson Consulting. Not only would you make my day, but you would put a smile on my dial. Also, this episode is sponsored by my 12-month group coaching program, Profit Pillars, which helps women in business create consistent 5,000K months. My 12-month group coaching program is for specifically women business owners who are ready to take action to grow a sustainable and profitable business. They no longer want to play small, they want to step up and play big. The program includes the complete Profit Pillar training system, complete with videos, PDFs, guides, and more, monthly live coaching strategy sessions, monthly hot seat calls, monthly mastermind classes with guest experts, 24/7 access to our private Facebook community, world-class member support, special bonuses, and secret surprises, and so much more. To learn about my amazing 12-month group coaching program, you can head to angelahenderson.com.au and click on I Want Help Creating 5,000K Plus Months. Now, let's get into this amazing episode. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Goodness, it is an honor to have you here, because let's be honest, as a mom, the loneliness is real. There's nothing else you can really say. The juggle is real. And so often we put ourselves on the back burner when we become a mom for multiple reasons. Our kids don't sleep. We don't know what we're doing. And again, the juggle is real. So when I came across Moms Who Whine, I reached out to you to come on the podcast because I just loved everything you're doing, from building the community for what you stand for. And I think the audience needs to hear where your journey started, where it is now, because not only as a mom, there's so much richness in your story. So I'm so thrilled to have you here today.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be to be on and to be able to share my story, and hopefully it can impact those that are listening.
You know, and I definitely think this will leave people with bigger impact than what I think they think. So before we get started, though, I always like to ask a fun question to the guest that's coming on, because I think it's important that the audience gets to know you for a little bit about who you are versus just like, hey, let's go straight into the podcast episode. So my fun question is obviously you're the owner of Moms Who Wine. So there only seems to be one simple question that I can ask, and that is, what is your favorite type of wine?
Oh, depends what day it is. Well, so I'm actually 12 weeks pregnant at the moment, so I haven't had wine for quite a while. But look, if it's a nice warm day, can't go past a glass of rosé. That right?
Yeah.
But I do love bubbles.
You do love a good champagne.
Yeah, I love a good champagne, which funnily enough, this might be a bit controversial, but I only started drinking wine a few years ago. I was actually a massive beer girl. Like, I used to drink, like, go to parties with a 6-pack of Stubbies under my arms. So, so I've definitely become a bit more cultured, and Mums Who Wine has helped that. But yeah, probably can't go past a nice glass of bubbles.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And the side note, I was watching this amazing documentary. Obviously, France has some of the best wine or champagne, do you know what I mean, and bubbles around the world. But because of the climate and everything that's happening, and the same thing, there's going to be certain types of crops here in Australia that will change also because of our weather patterns that are changing. And so actually they're starting to grow different wine in, say, England and stuff, because their summers are coming sooner in the way the winters are going. And so they're testing, because they believe if the weather continues to do, is that France potentially could lose the vineyards that they have, and that England would be the main country producing, because of the way the patterns are changing, which I thought was super interesting. It was some National Geographic I was watching one day. And so, so total side note, but it is wine. So I thought I'd throw that little tidbit out there. But it makes sense, though, that same thing that, again, if, Cairns, for example, who does a lot of the mangoes first and the bananas, what they're saying is that different parts of Australia would then be known for different types of crops. So side little note as we go there. So now, Mums Who Wine, I'd love to know kind of, where did you start in not even business, like did you have a corporate job? Has the business been something you've been doing for a while? Like, tell us a little bit more about Lauren and where you've come from and where you are now.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually a corporate lawyer. So I practiced for 10 years as a work cover lawyer. I was specialised in psychiatric injury work cover claims, and I was doing that for 10 years. And then Mums Who Wine came about when I relocated with my husband and small son. Thomas was 15 months. Relocated to a new area to be closer to the city, because I went back to work full time. So I left my friends, my family, my social network, because we had to make that decision for our family so that I could cut down travel time. And what I realised is, when I was working full time, I couldn't go to play groups, I couldn't go to mums groups, and I didn't have any friends because I had moved to a new area. So I put a call out on a local Mums and Bubs Facebook group and said, "Hi ladies, I don't know anyone. Would anyone like to have a glass of wine?" And thankfully, people wrote back, and I organised a dinner at our local wine bar, and 8 mums came along, and I thought, great, I've made some friends, job done. And then I had people contacting me saying, "Are you going to do another one?" And I'd love to come. And so that just sort of evolved, and I started a Facebook group called Inner West Mums Who Wine, because I live in Inner West Melbourne. And that group, in 18 months, grew to over 2,000 people.
Wow.
The events were selling out in 45 minutes. It was crazy. And I was doing this all while still working, obviously. And a couple of friends sat me down and said, "You need to start a business. Like, there's something in this." And I said, "Well, no, like, I'm a lawyer. What do you mean? I want to be partner. I'm on that corporate trail." And I'd never thought of making it a business, because I didn't start it out that way, and I never wanted to really make money from this genuine need that I started because of me. But anyway, I sat down and I thought about it, and long story short, I launched it the same week that I went back after having my second baby. He was only 6 months old. Why not? Go all in. Yeah, exactly. And I launched the business, and That was just over 2 years ago, and after 6 months, I quit my job as a lawyer, and I do this full time now.
Gosh, well, how amazing is that? People always think that the corporate life is just so bells and whistles. So I guess my question is since leaving, because I too have left my corporate role as a mental health clinician of 15 years. Mm-hmm. And listen, for me, it was personally like refreshing. I love that I can just I can get to my kids' school whenever I need to. Mm-hmm. I get to make my own schedule. The one thing I do miss though, is I miss the lunchtime laughter. Like I miss connecting with friends, and you just, for that 1 hour, you're like, it's your lunch break. And like, we would laugh, like we would belly laugh with tears. Right. And so, there is an essence of, we were talking about moms who want, and moms being that essence of loneliness, but I do think there's an essence of loneliness as a business owner too. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not talked about nearly as enough. A good friend of mine, Cherie from Digital Picnic, was talking about it on her Instagram stories the other day about the loneliness is as your business grows, there's a level of loneliness, like you kind of lose some peers, you lose things because you're in a different phase. But I also think there's a level of loneliness when you're starting out. I think the loneliness happens to each of us. It's just different because of the different stages. But it is something that I don't think business owners talk a lot about, and they question or get a little bit paranoid, like, is this normal? Should I be feeling this way? And then you kind of second guess yourself. But I just want to say, for those of you out there, regardless if you're a mom or a business owner, is that the loneliness is real. And that as much as we're going to talk about building tribes and things like that with moms who want, I would equally be encouraging you to build your tribe within your own business network, because let's be honest, our husbands and wives, they don't get it. Our friends, they're there to hang out and connect with us. They don't really want us talking about business. Yeah. So that loneliness, it's a real thing. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. And that's something that, like, I've always, obviously I'm very social, hence why I, run events across the country. But I loved because people said, oh, did you not like corporate? And I said, look, I loved my job. I loved the social aspect, the long Friday lunches, the corporate lunches. And I have definitely experienced that loneliness. I'm not even in an office. I work from home. On my dining room table, my husband's at work, the kids are at like school and daycare. And it is real. But that's why I've made sure that I really try to connect with other business women who are going through the same thing, to be able to talk and share and go, you know what, this is, only a few weeks ago, I think it was the pregnancy hormones, but I was like, I'm ready to give this all in because I just can't handle this anymore. And to actually go to people and they're like, we know we've been there, but look at the impact, and just kind of pep you up a bit. It's really integral. So definitely find your tribe of business women, businessmen, the people that get it.
Yep. And if we go back to the corporate side of things, there's how do I say it? There's so much more out of the world of corporate, right? Like, I think we think that that's our only way in living our life, right? So if you're out there and you're still working, whatever type of job it is, just know that, trust me, sometimes you got to double down on yourself. You got to back yourself. But I will also say this. If you're in the financial situation to be able to leave your corporate job, that's rock and roll it. But there's a lot of gurus out there that will say, leave your 9 to 5 and you're going to kill it. You're going to make money. And in my experience in seeing women who have done that.
I probably shouldn't have laughed that hard.
But the thing is that they, these gurus that are saying this aren't doing the full context. Like, they're where they're at now and they've got funds to be able to do that. But a lot of times if you're bootstrapping your business and you're going to jump straight from corporate and think that you're just going to be making 20, 30K a month and everything's rocking and rolling, unless you've got funds in the bank to do that, just be mindful, because I'm not at one to push, leave the 9 to 5 unless you've got a bit of funds available. That's all I'm saying, because it is as absolutely. I'm sure you know, it's a slog.
It's a massive slog. And look, we didn't, if we had our time again, it was really a huge step of faith, and it was more because the impact that it was having, I knew I had to. It wasn't because it was making money. It was because I just knew that I had to. There was just a bigger need that I needed to fill. And when people go, do you miss corporate? I'm like, I miss the money. It's been really, I'm going to be really honest, it's been really tough on my family because I was the main breadwinner. Yep. And we also had an investment property that was tied up with council. So it was sitting empty. So we were paying that, we were paying rent. So we got ourselves into a significant amount of debt. We sold the investment property. We've paid off all of our debt. It's definitely been a very challenging 2 years. But I think that's also been part of the journey. So it's not like I'm like, yeah, I had 100K sitting in
like, woo, I was cash money.
We were eating baked beans. I would laugh. I'm like, I never answered private numbers because it was credit card companies chasing me. And that's the thing that people, again, that highlight reel of Instagram, people are like, oh my gosh, Mums Who Wine is like booming and it's amazing. I'm like, yeah, but I can't pay my credit card bill, or I can't, I'm worried. And Cherie's actually amazing like that. I love her posts, and she's like, she spoke about recently when she took her her team out for dinner
yes, yeah.
Held her breath, hoping that it goes through. And I'm like, that's literally me nearly every day.
Yep.
So the struggle is real, but I knew that for me, and it was actually my husband that encouraged me to quit, which was great that I had his support when I was the main breadwinner.
That's so lovely.
And I just had to do it, and I don't regret it, but it definitely hasn't been an easy journey.
It's been tough, yeah. And I kind of I would get the opposite, because I loved my mental health job so much. Like, just again, like knowing that you're helping people or getting them funding, it was really important. So I also got a lot of crap from people going, well, aren't you sustainable enough that you can leave? And I'm like, but I actually like doing what I'm doing. Like, It's cool, because in the government job that I had is you obviously had your normal 4 weeks annual leave, 2 weeks sick leave, but then I had one registered day off a month, which was great. And then then you had all the public holidays. And then I also had this thing in the government that you could buy, which was called purchase leave. So I could buy extra leave. So I would buy an extra 8 weeks leave. So the reality is I wasn't at work for 4 months of the year. And the way the purchase leave is you would just say, I think it was $75 a week they would take out of your pay and put it into this like kitty. So when you took those extra weeks worth of work off, you were still getting paid. And so for me, it was like, well, hold on a minute. When people would kind of give me crap about it, I'm like, I actually am able to grow my business, have all this time off that's still paid to be with my family and go to Bali or whatever, but I didn't have to like put that extra pressure from a financial strain on them at that time, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, I always say, do what's in your gut and do what's best for your family, right? Like, what is, and sometimes you can get too many opinions from so many people that it becomes over swarmingly in your head going, I don't know what to do. So was there a pivotal moment though, we were like, shit is real, I got to jump? Like, obviously you said your husband was quite supportive. You identified a gap in the market, obviously very early on for yourself, when you're like, listen, you reached out to that wonderful group, you created the dinner. But was there like a pivotal moment where you're like, that we're game on, this is real? Because was it just about making friends, or was there an essence of like anxiety or depression or anything there where you're just like, I'm going to go downhill? Or I think before, when we were talking, before we press record, I think you used the word shell. I was like, you felt like you were a shell of a woman. Can you talk about that? Like, what was there a big moment, or was it just like an accumulation of things?
I think in terms of like realizing the impact that it was having, like I would, as I said, like I started it more, not out of a selfish need, but like a genuine need in me that I really just wanted to meet some friends in my local community. But then when I started it and it was building, I would have mums literally come up to me. I'm going to get teary. Come up with tears in their eyes and just say, thank you for starting this. Like, I made a friend tonight. And that would just hit me like a ton of bricks. And then I'd go back to my corporate job, which, I wasn't really, like, I was an insurance lawyer. I wasn't really changing the world. I was making the rich richer, the poor poorer. And it was just really impacting me. And then it got to a point where I went back to work after having my second son, and it was like the rose-colored glasses had come off, and I was just looking around, and I had always wanted to be a partner. I had always been very, very ambitious and driven, and I just looked around and I just went, I don't want to do this anymore when I know that I can be having a greater impact. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting home from work, and this was the pivotal moment for me, and I'd worked don't even know, like I hadn't seen the kids. I'd left in the morning. I'd got home late at night, and I got my laptop out and went straight to start working on Mums Who Wine. And Mark said something to me and I just snapped. And I'm like, do you understand how much pressure I am under? And that's when he just said to me, just quit. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean just quit? And I looked at him with utter disdain. I'm like, I can't quit. And we went out and he kept just saying, just quit. And I said, but I'm the main breadwinner. We want to buy a house. And he's like, so we keep renting, just quit. And then the biggest thing is then when he said it and I said, I can't quit. What would people think? And that's
interesting. Yep.
Yeah. And that's when I realized that I was so driven by what people were thinking. And, you know, when I used to say that I was a lawyer, I got like people went, oh, really? And that really fed something in me. But then when I was faced with, you know, I could have, like, partnership was definitely on the table for me. I just got a multi-million-dollar client. Everything was ticking along nicely. But then there was this whole new thing that, like, this incredible community that I'd built. And like I shared with you, like Billy, my youngest son, didn't sleep for 2.5 years. And that's what I was, a shell of a woman, because I wasn't sleeping. He wasn't sleeping. I'm trying to build a business. I was trying to work, be a lawyer. And that's when I just went, you know what, like at the end, and I say this very seriously, at the end of my life, if one person gets up at my funeral and says that their life was made better by something that I did, then that's job done for me. And that wasn't happening with me being a lawyer. So and I said to Mark, I'm like, how do I even quit? Like, what do I even say? And he's like, just go in there and say that you've started this business that is changing the lives of mums and just back yourself. So I did. I went in the next day and I quit. And it's been the biggest, like, it's honestly been my greatest step of faith. And I feel like God, the universe, whatever you believe, has totally backed me in it. But it's been a huge journey. But it was that pivotal moment when I realized, like, I can't do it all, and where is the need? And and like when, like you said, that I hit the market, and I say this regularly, I say I recognize that I hit a niche, like from a business perspective, but more importantly, I hit a need.
Exactly right.
There's like, we've connected over like probably nearly 10,000 mums across Australia. As I said, we've raised $30,000 for Panda. And I have messages daily from mums just like thanking me for starting it, or like, when are you coming to this area? I've had people from all around the world saying, when are you bringing Mums Who Whine here? And I was just like, you know what, I just have to do this because, and I always say as well, like, you know, some of our events we have 300 mums come, some we have a dinner of 10. It really doesn't matter. But I would say if one person leaves and they've made a friend, or they've felt a bit better about themselves, or they're a bit better mentally, then it's worth it. And I think that the money and all of that will flow. If you are really following what you believe you're meant to be doing and you're passionate about, then the rest will flow.
So let's just rewind a little bit, because not everyone might be familiar with Mums Who Whine and what that looks like, right? So can you tell us a little bit about, it obviously started off just, 8 women going out to dinner. And then obviously you then what was the progression? So because it's like you help hundreds of women now on a monthly basis, all right? Daily basis, you're helping them, in multiple different ways. Can you talk us a little bit about started there, but then what has happened and what does that look like? What has it evolved into now?
Sure, definitely. So it just started obviously with the events in my local area, but then what I'm really passionate about is encouraging mums to invest in their self-care and their mental health. So I'm like, how can I do that? How can I create this business organization that does that? So what Mums Who Whine is that we obviously are an organisation passionate about encouraging mums to take that time for themselves away from their children, so it's for them, for their own mental health. So we have an annual membership, which is $59 a year, and we partner with hundreds of businesses around Australia, which are all equally share our passion for mums to take this time out. So they, as a member, you go in and you flash your key ring and you get a VIP benefit. I don't like the word discount. It's actually, you're a mum, you're a VIP, you're having some time for yourself, so you should be treated like one. Yep. So, for example, it's like you might go get a free coffee, you might get a discount at the gym to encourage yourself to go and work out, local boutiques, all things like that, all focused on self-care. We also host events all around Australia. So we've launched in 8 locations. So obviously Brisbane is one of them. We're in 4 states, but and then we host these regular events, which is to encourage mums to get out, have a night for themselves, connect with other mums. And we also do pop-up events. So I travel around Australia to go to new areas. Particularly, we're hitting a lot of rural areas where there is a lot of isolation, there is a lot of mental health issues. And we run retreats, but most importantly, we donate 5% of all of our proceeds to PANDA, which is Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Australia. And as I mentioned, we've raised over $30,000 in 2 years for them, which is amazing.
Amazing. Like, hello, so awesome. So many levels of awesome. And I guess, it's you're making, I guess for you, it's not just, like you said, it's not just a business, but it's about how can you make that bigger impact. Mm-hmm. And for you, how did you know, or when did you know that it was time to kind of, start? Did you always tee up with PANDA from the beginning, or was that a progression in time? Because my big thing is I was just speaking at an event last night, and I was talking about, regardless of how big or small your audience is, your email list is, etc., we all are passionate about something. And we're very fortunate enough to live in a world of technology, actually, and some benefits of it. There's some that aren't, but in this instance, it's a great, because you've got a platform to talk. Mm-hmm. And my biggest thing is about raising awareness of mental health. As we talked hitting the record button, 8 people take their lives every single day in Australia. 8 people, which works out to about, unfortunately, 3,000 plus people in our country are dying every single year because of suicide. And it's a massive, it's an epidemic really for many things, especially when our world is getting more and more lonelier with more and more technology. There's direct correlation with those two. So how did you decide to use your business as a platform to create change and have that bigger impact in the world? When did that come for you?
Well, when I made the decision to make it into a business, I've always been someone that has donated to charities or different things. I always just want to, I always want to align myself with a greater good and a greater cause. And I knew that when I created it as a business and it was going to be generating money, because obviously for the couple of years prior when I was doing the events in my community, I never made any money. It was just a community-based thing. So I thought, okay, well, what is my mission and what are my values? And my mission was to obviously to connect and to get mums out during a difficult time, usually when they've got young babies, but it's open to mums of all ages. And I did a bit of research. I personally haven't suffered from postnatal depression, but quite a lot of my friends have. And as I said, I know there's a lot of stigma associated with mental illness, but particularly I think when you've just had a baby and everything's meant to be amazing and, oh my gosh, you're so blessed you've got this baby. Well, yeah, but what if you don't feel like it, you're blessed because you're not coping? So I contacted PANDA. I did a bit of research into a couple of other organisations, but PANDA really resonated with me. And I remember speaking to David Sutherland, who I deal with, and we had a really long chat. And the first and foremost, I said, look, I'm very aware that there's alcohol in the title, Mums Who Wine. I know the association with depression and alcohol, but it's just the name because that's evolved from the group that I had. But, our focus is on connection. And so we had that conversation really early, and they've just been amazing. And I'm so thankful that I've aligned with them, because even though they're a national organisation, they're really quite small. And whilst I was on the phone to you, I literally just got an email through from David thanking me for the donation for our Self-Care Saves campaign. He calls me after every donation. He checks in. He even says, like, how's your self-care going? I know you're working so hard to raise money for us, but how are you going? And, yeah, they're an incredible organisation. And the biggest thing is not a lot of people know about them. And I know that from our social media posts, we try to put up a lot of stuff up about PANDA where we can. And people have actually people have contacted me and said, I didn't even know about this, and I didn't know about PANDA because of your post. I'm going to see my doctor. And I'm like, wow. And that is, like you said,
so powerful.
Using that platform. And I feel that, if I can be a voice in this society and these communities, and that people trust me, and I take that role very seriously. Like, I don't look at myself as like an influencer trying to sell products or anything like that, because that's not what this is. It's about, encouraging mums to take time for themselves. And I honestly think that this is if you look after yourself, you know, you're going to be a better version of yourself, a better mum, a better partner. And not only are you going to be impacted, but your family and your community. So it's only going to have a positive effect.
100%. And yet but the guilt, right? As moms, we're like, damn, you know, we
mommy guilt.
You know, like, oh, 2 hours. But if you think about pre-kids, we were quite happy to go do X, Y, and Z. Like, there was never a question, right? But it's like when you got that other little person,
sleep until midday.
Exactly right. It was
back to bed.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get my makeup, hair. Most people who've listened to this podcast know it's not on my top priority. I'm in whatever you call these legging things and a t-shirt, and I just happen to have my hair down because I was at a speaking event last night. But most of the times I'm in a hoodie, right? But yeah, I would still get my I don't think I've been to a hairdresser in probably 5 months. But again, it's not a top priority, right? But back in the day, it was no problem. Like, you were going every 4 or 5 weeks. Like, it didn't matter. You made that time, right? And there is this shift when we become moms. And I also think we kind of lose our identity a little bit, and where do we belong and what does that look like? So to have a platform and a community for moms to go to through Moms of Wine is such an amazing opportunity, because your confidence starts to increase again. Those connections start to increase. Everything just collectively starts, 3 C's, confidence. What did I say? Confidence, community, and collectively. I was going, that's a weird little combination that I was saying. But you get the point, right? Is that it's such a beautiful way for them to go, hold on. And that was one of the things. I've had actually a few business owners who have just had babies come to me, and they're like, in a nutshell, they've said something similar, but, you know, thank you so much for showing me that I can be a mom, but equally be a good business owner, and that it's okay. And even when I talk at presentations, I have a picture of Finley and Chloe up, and I say, yeah, these are my, you know, beautiful little souls, but they're not all of my why. And as a mom, I had to learn and give myself permission that they're just part of my why. One day they're going to leave. And then what would my why look like if I dedicated everything to them, right? And so that was for me, all right? Everyone's why is very different. But it was, and people are like, oh, you know, when you said that, it made me think about X, Y, and Z. So thank you for that you can be a mom and you can also be a good business owner. So it's,
And I think, and this is the biggest thing, which is what I'm wanting to create, is that if mums actually go, and this is why our events, they're once a month or once every 2 months, it's 2 or 3 hours. If you actually go and take that time for yourself, you actually come home and you're a better mum, because you filled your cup. And it's that whole, you know, you can't pour from an empty cup, but it's true. As mums, we're so self-sacrificing. We give. And then when we do want to take time for ourselves, and I felt it as well, because I was working full time, and then I'd come home and I'm like, I want to go see my girlfriends and have a glass of wine, because that's the way that I fill my cup. But then I'd feel guilty, because I'm like, I haven't been home with the kids, but I knew that I was going to be better. I would miss them. Like, I think that, and that's a big thing why I'm wanting to create this, and that whole mummy guilt, spending money on yourself. And this is why, you know, for example, we partner with a lot of day spas, because I'm like, you know what, why don't you go get your massage and you get a free facial, and then you're going to feel better, you're going to be pampered, and then you're going to come home and you're going to see your kids, and you're not going to be resentful because you feel like rubbish because you haven't done anything. You've actually taken some time for yourself.
Exactly right.
So it's kind of a win-win, but it is that mummy guilt. Oh, it's a killer.
It's a real thing, people. It's a real thing. And again, it's for those of you that don't have kids, that's totally okay. But it's for those that are out there, you're probably shaking your head going, yep, the shit is real. It is as real as it comes. Now, when it comes to obviously leaving corporate, then creating this amazing business, what has been your biggest challenge when it's come to scaling your overall business? Because obviously you started out in, you know, a local location, and now you're all over Australia and I think New Zealand also. So what has been your biggest challenge when scaling it?
I think the biggest thing is, you know, I'm only one person, and I've never been good at delegation. Even when I was in corporate, I had my own PA, and I used to do a lot of stuff myself because I thought that was easier. But just actually, so I have ambassadors in all of the different areas where I am, and actually just relinquishing some of the control to give to them. And that's why our strategy moving forward for 2020, I'm actually empowering them in a whole new way to build their community, because it can't be so reliant on me, because I'm wanting to go out and expand more. But it is just that scaling it and making sure that it's, a few people are like, oh my gosh, you're going so big, so quick. And I'm like, but I'm going big because there's the need there. Like people are begging me to come. So it's not like it's like, oh, I'm going to go here because it's going to be financially viable. But I think it is just finding the right people, which I'm really lucky that I have, and finding, because this isn't just like a normal business. It's like, for example, of the events, I stand at the door, I welcome everyone. I put a post up yesterday, I think, about 4 mums came on their own to our event on Saturday in Ballarat, and I made sure that I connected all of them. They then became friends, and just people that are socially aware of, making sure that everyone's connecting and it's not like a business thing for them. It's, just finding people that share my heart and my vision, I guess. So it's just, but I think probably it is delegating and relinquishing control, which I am getting better at. And I think especially now that I'm 12 weeks pregnant with my 3rd baby, I realise that I'm definitely not going to be able to do it all. Yeah. But that's why, just finding the right people that can support you, and actually also just making some decisions. Like a couple of events I've just had to cancel, and I'm like, you know what, it's just not going to happen, and being okay with that. And it's not a failure, it's just part of the process.
Yeah, and it's the lessons, right? I always look at things, it's the lessons we need to do better, right? It's not a failure or a mistake. It's what do we need to learn from this? And for me, in the year of 2019, it was all about fail fast, but fire faster, actually, because I had started delegating, all right? And some of those people weren't doing what they needed to do. And then the opposite came, is then I was like, great, well, I'm hired now. And I was starting to delegate, but then I was like, well, this should be the end of it. But then the problem is they then weren't doing anything. So then I was like, okay, well, now I've got a different type of problem that I've got to work through, right? So it was like, and this is one of the things that Cherie and I had briefly spoke about at the retreat, was that you go from employee in your business and like solopreneur, then you start moving to like that kind of CEO realm, right? But when you move to CEO, you also have to become a leader. And there's no manual for that shit. And you're just kind of like, oh, so okay. And then some days, like, I know I've got my team too that works with my amazing intern, Erin, and Katie. And sometimes I think, I'm not probably giving them enough. Like, I think they're probably like, good morning. Like, and we don't meet every day. Like, they're contractors, they do their own thing. But I think like probably need to step that up a little bit, right? Like, I'm not really, because I've been so used to just being in isolation. But if I think of them, they're probably like, oh no, it would be great. Maybe we all needed, so it's something I'll be working on in 2020. But yes, it's an interesting type of field, is that just when we get good at one thing, and that's the thing, is they don't give you a manual for this owning a business scenario.
I know. And this is the thing. And like people say to me like, oh, so were you in marketing? Were you in PR? Were you in events? And I'm like, I was a work cover lawyer. I am literally throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And some things that I think are going to go really great, like some events I put out there, I'm like, this is going to sell really well. And that's another thing. Like when you're marketing to mums buy things at the last minute because they've got to work out what husband's doing, what the babysitter's doing, and all of that. So even that in itself is stressful, because I'm like, I need numbers, I need this, come on. They're like, yeah, I'm coming, I just haven't bought my ticket yet. I'm just like, oh. So it is just like seeing what works, what doesn't. It's a big
test.
Definitely a lot of learnings.
It is so much learnings, and it's just, you got to throw it out there. But again, until someone gives you their credit card, the transaction is non-existent, right? Like you can come up with some great things. And I too have had to cancel things where I'm like, you know what? It's not viable for me to go to Perth because of X, Y, and Z. It's not like you all said, 200 of you are like, yeah, this would be great. And then like 5 of you bought, like it's like, again, until that credit card is out, it is not ever formalized.
Oh, I'm glad it's not just me. I'm like, everyone's like, come here. And then I'm like, well, did you buy? And they're like, oh, that was cancelled. I'm like, did you buy a ticket? No one else bought a ticket. Whereas then other areas, like, as I said, the rural areas, like Bendigo sold out in a week, and we had a wait list of 50 people. And you've just got to, and that's the biggest thing for me is like, because people are like, oh, you need to go to this area. That'll be really good for your business. And I'm like, yeah, but there's no mums there that are really, like, they're sort of, like for Sydney, for example, people are like, you really need to go to Sydney because that's really good for business. And we've done a couple of Sydney events, which have been great, but we had 20 mums come, whereas I do events in Ballarat and I get 300 mums come. So I really want to go where the need is, not where it makes sense from a business.
And I think, again, too, Sydney, it's a city. there's probably however many other mum events potentially going on, right? Whereas like you said, in those rural areas, which kind of leads me to my last question for you. Well, one of my last questions is, what's your big plans for 2020? I know you've talked about rural a few times. Is that where you're going for 2020, even more so than what you're already doing?
Yeah, I think that's my real heart, and also my husband. So my husband's a country boy, so this really presses on his heart as well, just the isolation and the suicide rates. So the thing that, which is why I'm empowering our ambassadors who are in the cities to really focus on those city events so that I can be released to go out a lot more to these rural events. I know like I'm doing like a Warrnambool event and a few others, and to actually get out to those, not the city towns, because there's so much available for mums in the city, which is great. And I think that's amazing. And I'm not wanting to, it's not like I'm wanting to hit that market. I'm wanting to hit a need. So 2020, focusing more on rural, helping a lot of the farmers. I know that I've been contacted by some areas that have been affected by the bushfires and just said, look, I really think that if you came, you could really help the morale of the community. And that just hits me right in the heart when people are actually reaching out and saying, I think you can help.
Yeah.
So that'll be my focus. And even when the baby comes, Mark and the boys and the baby will just go on road trips, and I still want to continue doing the events in the rural areas. Obviously, I'll scale back a bit, but we'll just go as a family, and they can actually see what they do. Like my 5-year-old calls me the boss of all the mummies, which is adorable. He actually stops people in the street and he goes, do you know that this is my mum, Mums Who Whine? She's the boss of all the mummies.
Legendary.
So just for them to see what we're doing and the impact as well, which will be amazing.
Yep. And I think, again, nice little transition there with the word impact. I'd love for you to share the 2 stories that you shared with me before we press record in regards to, and I don't get teary often, my friend, not often, but I'd love for you to share the stories and the impact you've had with the rural areas with your Melbourne Cup event.
Oh, yeah. So we ran an event called Thank a Farmer, which actually came about, now I'm going to get teary. It came about a mum in a rural area contacted me and said, I know you do a lot of city events, but would you come to rural, because we've had 3 suicides in our community and I think that you could make a difference. And that just hit me. I'm like, yes, I'm coming. So we went and did an event there. And then what I realised is I just want to help these farming communities that are really, really doing it tough. They're horrible circumstances at the moment. So in the middle of this year, we ran an event for farming mums and then farming dads, and they were nominated, and we got sponsors and we brought them to Melbourne for an all-expense paid weekend. We took them to the footy in a corporate suite, and we took them out for dinner in a limo ride around Melbourne. And then later this year, we actually brought 8 farming couples from all around Australia and brought them to Melbourne, and we took them out to Melbourne Cup in an elevated marquee on trackside at the Melbourne Cup, which was we had an incredible sponsor, Ian Urquhart, and Condor Corporate Leisure, which was their marquee, and gave them an all-expense paid experience at the Melbourne Cup that they could share together as a couple. And they, had a hotel for 2 nights and they could just spend some time together. One of them said that they'd never been off the farm.
Wow.
Yeah, they'd never been off the farm. They'd never been on a holiday. And
that is like so crazy.
Yeah. And so, and I get up and, Mark and I get up and share and just say, look, we know that you guys are doing it tough, and we don't want you to think that you're forgotten. And, suicide is the number 1 killer in men. In farmers, that doubles, because they have so much financial strain. They're driving themselves into trees because they want their family to get their life insurance policy. It's just absolutely devastating. So we really feel that obviously you can raise money and you can give them money, but if you can take them out of their environment and just lavish them and make them feel valued and honoured and loved, they just said it was life-changing for them. So that's another thing. We're really wanting to do more events like that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. So again, for all of you that are out there thinking you can't make an impact, you can change anyone's lives. One person, one person is all it takes to make the world a better place, really. So now with where can people learn more about you or connect with you, Lauren?
Yeah, so we've got our website, so www.mumswhowine.com.au. We're about to do a full relaunch for our website, which is exciting. And then Instagram is mumswhowine_au, and Facebook is just mumswhowine.
Fantastic. And my final question is, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started out in business?
People... Yeah, I think what you were saying before, until you see the credit card come out, like, people are fickle. Like, they are amazing and that they'll support you with their words, but sometimes I think they're a bit, what's the word? Non-committal.
Yes. Yeah, yes. That is.
So I thought that, I thought that it would be like, it's obviously grown exponentially, but the membership side of it, like, it is incredible value. And I think a lot of the mums are like, oh, I don't know if I want to commit. Yeah, they're non-committal.
Yeah.
So, and I think the biggest thing, I actually, someone asked me this the other day, is that it's okay to kind of stand up and own your successes. I've been so worried about being someone I always said I wanted to be someone of stature, not status. And I think for a large part of, particularly this year, I've kind of pushed, and people go, oh, it's going so well. I try and downplay, oh, no, but, it's blah, 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 and actually stand up and own it and go, you know what, yeah, this is pretty great what I've created and I'm proud of it. And that doesn't make me arrogant. That just makes me proud of my achievements. And I think, like you said, it's a very lonely, isolating thing when you're working basically for yourself. Mm-hmm. So to give yourself a pat on the back and say, good on you, Lauren, you're doing a good job, I think it's needed.
Yeah, 100%. Again, celebrating any win, small or big, is so important. It's like you said, and again, we just downplay it. Oh no, it's not that big a deal. But again, own it, step into it. Don't be afraid to play big so awesome. And before we sign off, I just want to remind you, listeners out there, that we'll have all those links definitely in our show notes, and that my team and I will be putting together the whole transcription for this episode at angelahenderson.com.au. And as I mentioned earlier in my intro, if you enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to share it, especially on your Instagram stories, and tagging myself at Angela Henderson Consulting, or also Lauren at mumsofwine_au on Instagram. We would love that. You guys would make our day. I'd also love, if you haven't already subscribed to the Business and Life Conversations podcast, to please do so. And also, if you could leave a review, I would really, really appreciate that. Thanks again, Lauren, for being on the show today. And for the rest of you, have a fabulous day no matter where you are in the world. And I look forward to you joining me next week for another amazing episode of the Business and Life Conversations podcast. Thanks again, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast with Angela Henderson. www.angelahenderson.com.au